Welcome to Common Sense Coalition Talk Radio, where you'll find straight talk from people with good old common sense.
I trust your opinion.
And now, for your host, she's putting sense back into nonsense.
Absolute insanity.
You can hear me on the radio. You want to turn me on, turn on your stereo. You can sing along while they're playing our song. How you done me wrong, baby, crank it up.
And now, your host, Beth Ann.
And I welcome you today to CSC Talker Radio. It is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be here with you today. I want to say November is coming. And the Democrats, they're angry. I have this quote from Teddy Roosevelt. It says, "To anger a conservative, lie to him. To anger a liberal, tell him the truth." Well, we've been lied to repeatedly by politicians on both sides. But the out-and-out smear and fear campaigns that the left keep throwing out is utterly amazing with the arrogance and disgusting as it reveals their purpose. If you're content right now with the progress that the president has been making, just think about the hurdles he's had to do what little he's got done, which really has been quite a bit. And just think how much more progress he can make if we turn things around and give the president more support in the House and the Senate. We'll soon finally be rid of Paul Rhino Ryan. However, if there is a blue wave, the Dems, in all their ugliness, have promised to renege on the tax reform. They want those crumbs back. Go back to the earmarks. They want to do that. Enforce more EPA regulations because we've been kind of taking those out for the good of the clean air and such, because the sky is falling. And they will start a vicious impeachment procedure aimed at our new Justice Kavanaugh. And they will begin, for made-up reasons, an impeachment of our duly elected president. And by the way, they also want to change the Constitution in regards to the Electoral College, and they want to take back the Supreme Court by adding to the number of judges so that they can stack the deck in their favor in the future and not have to worry about such things as constitutional judges like Kavanaugh. We witnessed, and they no longer believe in rule of law, or presumption of innocence, or due process. They believe in power and destroying this constitutional republic, or the democracy, if that's what you want to call it. We just got word, though, today, just as I was writing this out, that Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, has resigned, and I'm a little curious and slightly worried about it. Today we have a man with us. He's had some experience in D.C. I think it was good. I'm not so sure. And he is fighting for you, and he is fighting for me. He is fighting for rural America and Americans' energy, the now and the future. Daniel Turner of Power the Future will join us here, and we're going to talk about some of the energy stuff and some of the breaking news as Nikki Haley has just resigned. It was kind of a surprise to all of us. Welcome back, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Beth Ann, I'm great. Thank you for having me on. I love these monthly shows we do.
Oh, I love having you on the show. It's just great. It's fun to talk to somebody and to discuss what's going on. And I was thrilled that you texted me just as Nikki Haley was resigning so that we could talk about that a little bit. What is your take on it?
Well, I was at the State Department for several years in the Bush administration, so I know the State Department pretty well, and I know what the UN does. I did all the press around the UN General Assembly, so I know that role. When I was there, it was John Bolton was the ambassador. My take is I'm very curious as to the backstory. I don't believe, as people are speculating, she has plans on running against the president. That's a pretty dirty move to run against an incumbent president, especially one who's popular. Normally, you don't see that within the party. I think the last one who did was Kennedy ran against Jimmy Carter in 1980. He primaried Jimmy Carter, Ted Kennedy of Chappaquiddick fame. So it's not a common thing. I don't think she would primary the president. It may be a personal reason. The thing I like the most about it is that she had clearly been planning this for 6 months. and no one knew. So maybe the leaks are finally plugged in the White House.
Well, I hope so. And I was kind of shocked. I mean, it did take me it set me back this morning when I saw that. I was a little hesitant to like Nikki Haley at the very beginning because I didn't like some of the things she did in South Carolina, especially when we had the riots and issues there. But I think she's done a fantastic job as the ambassador to the United Nations. So
Absolutely.
I was a little set back.
I agree with that. I was surprised when he chose her. I thought it was a sign of reconciliation within the party because she campaigned pretty viciously against the president.
Yes, she did.
And she didn't have foreign policy credentials. She was a governor and a popular governor in South Carolina. But that's quite a change from governor of South Carolina to ambassador to the UN. But I agree. I think she did some very good things, especially when it comes to our ally Israel, when it comes to some funding questions. I would like to see this as a first step of just like Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accords, maybe he can pull us out of the UN because it seems to be, from my perspective, I know that's a radical statement.
I'm with you, though.
It's an anti-American organization that we pay 50% of the budget for. And
only
I don't
50?
understand why. Maybe even more, maybe higher, maybe like 80%. But I know we pay the bulk of it.
We do.
It's in America. You know, if the UN ambassadors love the world so much, maybe they could pick up their headquarters from the east side of Manhattan and move it to the Congo, or move it to Afghanistan, or move it to one of these war-torn countries where their peacekeepers are actually doing more to incite violence. So I'm not a huge fan of the United Nations, and I don't like the fact that we fund it, and it is militantly anti-American.
It is globalist. That's what it is. It's anti every country. I mean, it doesn't want nationalism in any nation, but particularly the United States, because we kind of stand for that. And we've seen a lot of problems with that. I think that's the left's problem. They're globalists, and I think the rhinos, that's their problem. They're globalists. The left are socialists. But, that's why nobody wants to take care of the wall. They don't want to secure the borders because they want it to be a North American Union. They want us to all have open borders going through here. So this pride of a flag or pride of allegiance or remembering our past, be it yesterday, Columbus Day, or, well, it's not. That was not the official Columbus Day. I guess it was the one they're going to celebrate. Officially, it's the 12th. But, we've seen them put down the Founding Fathers, who we know were not saints. They had their human errors just like the ones today, but they were for this nation. They weren't pushing against this nation. They were pushing for it. And so I am a little concerned that she's leaving, but you kind of encouraged me a little bit. Maybe I think most of the average Americans, the UN is like some of the other things, some of the other entities and foundations and associations or whatever. They're a good idea when they start out, but it doesn't end up well.
And they're always taken over by the left. And just look at the last couple of weeks, some things that have happened. Remember back in the day, the UN Criminal Court wanted to bring up charges against Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld as war criminals. The UN Human Rights Commission said that our sanctions against Iran are a human rights violation and demanded the U.S. Reverse our sanctions. Now, of course, we're not part of those organizations, so we just, as Americans, kind of laugh. But the UN has said things like, we want to send inspectors to your elections because the UN has a history of disenfranchising minority voters, and all just this globalist nonsense that they put America on par with Cuba and speaking of Cuba and Venezuela, remember when they were the head of the Human Rights Commission and Iran was the head of the Human Rights Commission, and we're supposed to pretend this isn't all a bunch of nonsense. So, not a fan of the UN. Not
a fan of the UN. I think most Americans are not a fan of the UN. We're heading into a break. Your calls are welcome. We're going to open up the phone lines, 877-895-5410. It's News Day with Nikki Haley resigning, but we're going to talk about energy and some of the things. When I had my monologue, Daniel, we were talking about the regulations that the president has done away with and rolled back and lifted off of the burden of the American people. And if the left take over, the Democrats take over, they want to put those back in place and more. You're listening to CSE Talk Radio, 877-895-5410. That's 877-895-5410. And Daniel and Beth Ann, we're going to be right back. Yeah.